Good evening, Mr. Richmond. I'm Abigail Creo, and today we're going to be talking about the Vietnam War. Today, I'm going to be talking about setting the stage for the Indochina War. In the 19th century, Vietnam was a French colony called Indochina. Japan invaded Vietnam and defeated the French in 1945, and Japan is now colonized by the Japanese until the Japanese are defeated by the Allied powers in World War II. The French were also defeated in World War II and lost many economic resources. The French wanted Vietnam back under the control, but the Vietnamese resisted. To start off the Indochina War, a paramilitary group of guerrilla fighters led by Ho Chi Minh, known as the Viet Minh, resisted the Japanese during World War II and are given aid by the Soviet Union, United States, and China. Vietnam post-World War II were controlled again by the French when in 1946, the First Indochina War broke out between Vietnam guerrilla forces and the French. The United States attempted to maintain status quo by sending aid to Vietnam, and in order to help the French, in which they sent $1 billion in total. Between 1950 and 1954, the French were defeated in Vietnam and became entwined with the Cold War.
Adding on to Abigail, the Battle of Dien Bien Phu was a war between France and Vietnam. In 1954, after the French occupied the Dien Bien Phu Valley in 1953, the French attempted to cut off the Viet Minh from supplies that they were receiving from Laos. This led to the Viet Minh bringing artillery and anti-aircraft weapons into the country. The United States aided and supported France mainly because the United States were allies with the French. Another reason why the United States gave aid to France was because the US was more concerned and worried about containing communism, and because Vietnam was communist during this time, the United States were against Vietnam. In the end, the French were defeated and the First Indochina War ended. The main presidents involved during this time is Truman, Eisenhower, and Kennedy. We'll get into Nixon later, but Truman was involved during the 1950s when he sent U.S. advisors into Vietnam in order to help the French. Eisenhower was involved when he supported Ngo Dinh Diem for the presidency in South Vietnam, and Kennedy was mainly involved when he began to send special forces and military equipment to assist Diem in riding the communists of the Viet Cong in the South.
Thank you, Grace. Hi, I'm Sophia, and after the Battle of Dien Bien Phu, the Geneva Accords took place. In Switzerland, from April 26, 1954 to July 21, 1954, the Geneva Accords were an accord to end the First Indochina War. As a result, Vietnam was divided along the 17th parallel with a communist north and a capitalist south. This foreshadowed a similar event to Korea, as they were divided along the 38th parallel with a communist north and a capitalist south as well.
When Diem falls, a weak southern government is put in place, and so the popularity of communism increases. The Viet Cong start to build secret guerrilla trails throughout Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. These trails are called the Ho Chi Minh Trails. On August 2nd, the North Vietnamese attack the USS Maddox in the Gulf of Tonkin in an act of war. On August 4th, another attack was said to have happened to provide grounds for war, but it never actually happened. President Johnson was authorized to take any means necessary to fight the North Vietnamese, and this was called the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. Also, this war was one of the first wars to implement fourth-generation warfare. Fourth-generation warfare can be categorized as decentralized, blurs lines between war and politics, blurs lines between civilian and combatant, no longer nation versus nation, and back to pre-modern times. Also, Vietnam was the first war that Americans were able to see on their television screens through the nightly news. This eventually led to the American public turning against the Vietnam War as they saw what was actually going on.
Hello America, I'm Alyssa Morell, and I'm here to talk to you about the Tet Offensive. So it all started when the South Vietnamese and the US were equal with the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong. North Vietnamese wanted victory over the US to make their military look better. The Tet Offensive happened in 3 phases. The first phase was when the NVA and Viet Cong attacked almost over 100 cities and towns, which made the US surprised and they wanted to attack back. Phase 2 happened in May, and it was when the ARVN and Americans held territory over their enemies. The last phase, which happened in August, was when the NVA was trying to knock out the Americans but failed badly. It then ended in 1968, and it made Americans look really bad because they told their citizens that they were going to end war, but they just went into another war. And it only made 25% of Americans actually want to be in the war. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Alyssa. It's Sophia again, and after the Tet Offensive, President Lyndon Johnson's popularity dramatically decreased because he was seen as mismanaging the war. Meanwhile, Republican candidate Richard Nixon was gaining popularity by appealing to the conservatives who wanted to see a quick end to the war, also known as the silent majority. He promised to bring an end to the war, which led him to win the 1968 presidential elections. He was elected with a plurality of votes of 43.4%.
Good morning to everyone watching tonight. We have some breaking news coming to you about the Vietnam War. Cambodia attempted to remove the Viet Cong out of Cambodia, but this attempt was cut short by the Viet Cong. The Viet Cong sent troops to Cambodia to make sure this doesn't happen. The U.S. invaded Cambodia and sent more troops. The U.S. also invaded Laos and disrupted the Ho Chi Minh Trails. This escalation of war has caused massive controversy in America. Students at Kent State University in Ohio protested against this, but unfortunately this protesting turned violent. 4 students were killed and 9 others were wounded after interaction with state troops. This has caused a massive student strike across Europe. This program to bring you some breaking news about the Vietnam War. After over a decade of fighting a pointless war and losing countless American lives, the war is finally coming to an end. The negotiations that were happening between President Nixon, his Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, and the North Vietnamese were successful. The Paris Accords were signed today, and it is official that the war will be ending. The U.S. has agreed to withdraw combat forces from North and South Vietnam. There has also been a ceasefire between North and South Vietnam. Elections have been set to take place within 1 year, as well as an exchange of prisoners.